very special edition of Forever Bristol City podcast. We're not on our normal surroundings. We're actually in one of the boxes at Ashton Gate. I'm delighted this afternoon to be joined by Group CEO of Bristol Sport, Gavin Marshall, and my regular attendee, Ian. Gavin, welcome along to Forever Bristol City podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Ian, you've been angling for this meeting to take place because we're always sat there on the sidelines with our comments. You lead off with the first question.
He just got fed up of me pitching up outside their house and sleeping in the car, so we're eventually here. Let's start off with a nice easy one. It's that time of year again, and we're selling season tickets. So can you tell us how that's going, and is it on target, and what is the target, and how many did we finish selling last year? So if you like, where we are and where we're heading.
Yeah, it's a pretty bit too early to say, if I'm being honest, in terms of where we're at. We're pretty happy with how it's trended at the moment, but we've sold over 8,000 tickets at this stage. But the key thing for us is, we still have the lose your seat deadline next week.
Yeah.
So we're conscious that we don't really know where we are until that deadline's passed, really, or reached. In terms of then we've got a good flavour by then in terms of how many people are renewed. And then, of course, we've got to go on general sale and see how that goes. And one thing I would say is we're really delighted with the attendances that we've had this season. We'll have the highest average attendance that we've had for over 40 years.
Yeah, said that. Yeah, 40 years, incredible.
Which is incredible. We've had fantastic support. So we're pretty upbeat. We're expecting some season tickets to increase slightly. We always look for growth year on year. So hoping to go past the 15,000 mark this year. But yeah, as I say, it's probably a bit too early to say with certainty where we're.
Is that where we are now at about 15,000 this season?
Yeah. That's
and that's obviously including the half season tickets.
Yeah, including the hospitality.
Yeah, and it does make you wonder what would happen if we were top of the league.
Yeah,
or even in the top six for the entire season, and dare I say, playing well.
Yeah, well, certainly if we're in the Premier League, I think the season stadium wouldn't be big enough to meet the demand. So it's the reality. But look, we've seen steady growth over the last 8 years. I've been here. Just seeing the crowds grow and grow, and we'll average well over 22,000 this year. So it is tremendous, and I think we're at that stage now where season ticket wise we're quite relaxed because we probably don't want to have that many more season ticket holders. Is a reality, because I think we've seen the season with the South Stand where, to be honest, we've sold out the South Stand to season ticket holders that
sometimes don't turn up.
Some of them don't turn up. And I think it is nice to have that mix that maybe in the other stands where we do have match ticket purchasers, different people, keep for the atmosphere and to keep it a bit more vibrant. So yeah, we're pretty comfortable with the season tickets that we've got.
And it's good to see that continuing for the Rotherham game, because we look online as well as we can tell, and there are about 600 tickets left for the Rotherham game in the home section, and with Rotherham probably bringing a coach load, is the latest info I've got. Would you think about opening a section of the Atio for home fans if there is a demand and an overspill?
We have done it before, we're doing it for some of our bigger cup games, but it does have practical issues, and it's more of a stadium question really. And I think often when we get to that point, it's a bit late in the day in terms of a couple of weeks before kickoff and the logistics of organising. So it's not the easiest thing to do, to be honest. But yeah, we're anticipating a really big crowd.
And the football capacity is about 26 and a bit, is it?
Yeah, about 26 and a half. So we've got about 3,700 in the Atio if we're in every seat in there. So the rest of the stadium's just shy of 23 really in terms of for home fans.
Yeah, with the segregation and the cameras and all the rest of it. Yeah.
Okay, if we look at the season as a whole, how's reality fared against expectation? It's been with its ups and downs. On balance, you'd say probably more ups, but if we haven't had that poor run in the run up to the previous international break, we may well have been challenging, mightn't we? And that's the fine margins, isn't it?
It is the fine margins. I mean, we're not too far off. If the expectations at the start of the season and where we're at, it's probably just about right, maybe a little bit under of what we'd hoped for and expected, really. I think you said this yourself, we've been inconsistent. We've had some great games here. The Leicester game, Southampton game over the last couple of months, I thought the team were absolutely outstanding. And
They were.
We obviously had a great cup run. So we went out in the fourth round, but we had four cup ties where I thought the team played really well for all of those. And, fantastic occasions at Ashton Gate. So, yeah, it's been a little bit frustrating. We've been a little bit inconsistent, really. And hopefully, we know that on our best, but we can beat anyone in this league. I say we show that with Leicester and Southampton, and show that against West Ham.
And I suppose the real shame now is that those FA Cup replays will never happen again. Because the FA and Premier League, are probably up with it, have decided that from round 1, and they're not even involved until round 3, they decided that there will not be any more replays. And I haven't read the detail of it, so I don't know if it goes straight to extra time in pens in the first game. But I think that's a real shame for the smaller clubs, or the clubs outside the Premier League, if you will.
That's a massive shame. We don't have to have too much imagination, do we? I mean, look at this season. West Ham games, 29,000 fans there. I mean, it was a fantastic occasion, wasn't it? And we played outstandingly well and deserved a replay. We earned the right to have a full house here and bring them back here, didn't we? So, to think that we won't have that opportunity next year and in future years is really disappointing. And as you say, it affects us, but it really affects. You look at some of the clubs in League One, League Two.
Newport's
an obvious one. They're cup runners.
It's their cash.
Let's give them 5 years of security and doing business.
Yeah.
Instead of having a good cup run, so it's a real shame.
That's current news about the FA Cup. Also current news is the new TV deal. And, people, we've just come from a Senior Reds lunch, people are talking about timing of the fixtures and what have you. Do you think that may impact people's decision on season tickets this summer when they know what the fixtures look like, but then Sky don't schedule in detail until about 2 months before anyway, do they? So what's the upside for the club financially of the new deal?
There is upside for all clubs. So, the deal is positive for clubs, and significantly. We're talking about a couple of million there, or in excess of that. So it is, there is compensation for the clubs in there. It's worth having a new deal. What we have been told is that we will get a lot better notice in terms of, they will look to schedule the games better more in advance, which we hope is true. And as you say, it depends on where we are in the league, really, because we've had, we haven't been picked historically over the last couple of years because we haven't been challenging. We haven't been challenging at the top end or the bottom end, so we haven't been picked too much for TV. There's going to be more TV games, and we're just going to have to cope with that and play at different times.
But I understand the 3 o'clock, the sacrosanct 3 o'clock kickoff on Saturday, games won't be covered.
That's right.
Not nationally, they'll be covered internationally. I think we're still doing that on Robin's TV.
That's right.
And I guess wearing your Bristol Sport hat, you've got a more complex job than others with that schedule, because you've got the Bears and the women's teams to work around Sky saying, we want to do that day, when you've had the stadium used back-to-back days.
Yeah, look, it's another complication, but you're right. But Bristol City men's team have the primacy of tenure. So if the games gets moved, then the games get moved, and our other events and our other teams just have to move on.
Do you think the women will play here again next season, or will they be back up the HPC? I'm being a bit horrible and assuming they're going to get relegated, but I think they've got about as much chance of staying up as Sheffield United. So, perhaps less.
Yeah, look, they haven't given up. We've got 4 games left, and obviously they're here on Saturday morning again, Saturday lunchtime against Liverpool, and that's a big game, and a game that the team will think they can win. That's right. So, we haven't made plans. We're still fighting to stay in the WSL. So, when we know what league we're playing in next year, then we'll make an announcement, make a final decision.
But I was looking at the numbers here. We're 3rd or 4th best attended team in the WSL. I mean, obviously Arsenal are getting 60,000 and all the rest of it. But and Chelsea are getting big crowds when they play at Stamford Bridge, which is unusual because they don't normally play only the European games there. So, I think the attendances here have been a great surprise to everybody. For the women's team, I'm talking.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they've been great across the group, as we talked about earlier with the men's team. But yeah, they've been outstanding for the women's team. I mean, the average crowd is 7,400, excess 7,400 with 3 home games to go. At Christmas time, when at the halfway point of the season, we were 4th in Europe. Which
in terms of attendances,
which is absolutely astonishing. It was only Barcelona, Arsenal, and Man United who were ahead of us. We've slipped a bit since then, so we're 5th in the country, in the UK, in terms of behind the 2 Manchester clubs, Arsenal and Chelsea. But I mean, that's
a long way from being disappointing, though, isn't it?
It's phenomenal, and the support the team have had, and let's be honest, it's been a challenging season. There's been some great performances, but they still haven't had a home win to celebrate. And yet the crowds have been coming. We'll get over 5,000 on Saturday for Liverpool. So the crowds have been phenomenal.
Would you say it's exceeded expectations, the level of support it's got, and then leading on from that, the amount of investment that has gone into it? With hindsight, maybe there could have been some more, but what's the view on that?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, you're right. Probably exceeded where we've been. I mean, we've traditionally had a great support. We've had a strong women's team for a long period of time. We've built up that support. We had it when we were in the Championship. We were top of the attendances ahead of Liverpool. So we knew we had a strong support here in Bristol. But it has been even better than we hoped. But in terms of the investment, we've invested a lot in the women's team this year. We made a number of signings in the summer. The reality is that we do have the smallest budget in the league. We're the only team in the WSL that isn't affiliated to a men's Premier League team, and it's a massive jump between the WSL and the Championship.
I think it would be a bit like taking our under-18s and putting them in the Premier League in terms of what people earn, because they're women at Chelsea earning 10 times a year what our women's ladies players are earning. Is the information that I've got, and sometimes it's more than that.
It is. It is one player reputed salary would be more than our whole playing squad. Our one player playing in the league. So, it's massive. But I don't want that to take away from the investment that's been put into the team. Because,
substantially more.
And we will lose. The women's team will lose over £1 million this year, which is in anyone's view a massive number, and a massive number historically to where we funded the team. But equally, we do have by far the smallest budget in the WSL. So we've invested a lot. But the other 11 teams have invested more, but they have
a lot more to put in.
They have a lot more to put in. They've got a men's team in the Premier League. So
we're going to talk about recruitment, but there's one appointment that's outstanding at the moment. How close are the club to getting a chief medical officer to replace Dave Rennie? I mean, is it being shared at the moment, or is there an appointment in the offing?
Yeah, there's an appointment in the offing, so we should have some news that we're ready to make public over the next couple of weeks in terms of.
So for pre-season, then
that's right.
They'll all be set up.
That's right. Yeah.
And the number of injuries that we've had, it seems to blight a lot of football clubs at the moment. People I talk to, a Brentford fan, naming players that are regular starters for them. It seems as though we've had a bit of a bad run, but how much? I know they're great pitches up at the HPC, but is it? Again, we say on the podcast, I wonder if pitches are too hard or something like that. Is it just bad luck that we've had with injuries? Simple as that.
I think clubs like ourselves are always looking for that, reason of how it is part and parcel, and it has been a particular problem this year. With our injuries, but you're always looking for that. I remember earlier in the season when we had a real tough run of injuries, and we're looking for reasons why. And you looked at Newcastle and you thought, what are Newcastle doing right? They seem to have put out the same 11 players every week. They haven't had an injury yet. And as soon as we sort of verbalised that and said that, they had a bucket load of injuries in the next couple of weeks. So it's a very tricky thing to get right. And people who are far more skilled than me are constantly looking at how we can minimise injuries, what type of injuries we're having, what we can do. It's a key focus.
I started jokingly calling the HPC the hamstring probability centre. at one time, because it's interesting. A huge number of injuries have been, well, basically 3: hamstring, calf, and then we were very unlucky and we've had three ACLs. We had Andy Vyman had an ACL. He was out for a season, came back and had the best season of his life. And we got poor Eamon Benarouz and Rob Atkinson, who have been out for about 2 years and 18 months respectively, with this continuing ACL problem. And when they do the operation now, they take something from the hamstring to repair the ACL. And what really brought home to me the other day, I was watching the women's game, England and Leah Williamson. Exactly the same thing happened to her. She did her hamstring, did her ACL, replacement hamstring. She came back and tore her hamstring straight away. So this is something that hopefully the new medical guy can say, well, we're not doing that anymore, or we'll know a different specialist.
That's very presumptive, Ian, saying new medical guy.
New medical person.
Very presumptive. Anyway, less of that. Has the budget for next season, 24-25, been set yet? Phil Alexander mentioned on Sound of the City back in September when he was here that 23-24's budget had been agreed in March. Are we in that sort of similar situation where, you know, the plans are in place going forward for next season?
Yes and no. I mean, sure, you know, sure, we're obviously been looking at different forecasts and where we might be next year, but you know, we haven't agreed a budget for next season or for the summer. You know, it depends. There's still many variables that, you know, we've got players that we're in discussions with that we're looking, you know, not many of them, but out of contract this season, looking at players potentially to extend their contract and maybe next summer. So, you know, that's our focus at the moment. Of course, our recruitment team are working with Liam and his team to identify, you know, potential targets and what areas we think we might want to strengthen, and you know, they're busy doing that. But you know, we're not quite at that stage yet where we have a clear budget for next year.
Are we in a position where we have to sell to buy? So, for example, last season, everybody knew that Alex Scott would probably be leaving. And I remember Nigel Pearson saying at the time, don't think we're going to spend a load of money if he goes, and whoever he goes to is going to cost him plenty. So Alex eventually moved on. It cost people plenty, or Bournemouth plenty. But I think you were saying, or John was saying at the Senior Reds, that some of the money was, I'll call it pre-spent, in bringing in Anis Mehmeti, Harry Cornick, Jason Knight, Ross McCrory, and so some of that money was gone. And had Alex not been sold, then Steve Lansdowne was going to cover shortfall. So are we in that position again where we have to sell someone to be able to bring in the 9 and the 10 that, like Brian Tinian spoke to the Senior Reds, and he also did an interview on Radio Bristol. He said, you know, the 2 players we're looking at mainly is a 9 and a 10. Does that assume someone has to go first, or can we spend about the same as we did last summer to bring in those players if Tommy decides he's going to stay,
you know,
or whoever else decides they're going to stay?
We were in a slightly unusual situation last year where we had a massive asset, you know, who we knew that in likelihood would go in the window and would go for a significant sum. You know, we're not in that position this year. We're not looking at 20 million. We don't have Alex Scott, you know, in the squad. So we're in a different position this year. You know, I don't think we're at a position where we're saying we've got to sell before we buy as such. I think, as I said, we haven't agreed a budget for next, you know, finalised the budget for next year. There's lots of different variables around, you know, conversations that we're having with existing players. And I think, you know, we're always looking to improve. You know, we're always looking for the right players who will come in and improve our squad that are available on the right terms. You know, one thing I would say is, you know, we have brought forward some of our business early in January.
Max Bird.
You know, you know, we're really excited about Max Bird. You know, we've got Josh Stokes joining us in the summer. Adam Murphy was brought with the aim of being available, you know, for next season. We obviously brought Gardner Hickman's loan and made that permanent early. So we've done some of our business we brought some of it forward in January.
And some outgoings with Andy Vyman, who was going to be out of contract this summer. He's gone the other way, gone to West Brom.
That's right.
Although that's not a perm, is it? It's still a loan.
That's right.
So on that basis, when do you decide a playing budget, and then is it up to Brian Tinian alone to negotiate with the agent and the player and the other club and bring them in from within that budget? Or do you, for example, get involved, or does Tom get involved in negotiating the wages and all that kind of stuff? How's the mechanics of it work?
Yeah, obviously, we have a recruitment team headed up by Sean Gillespie.
Yeah.
We have Brian in his role, we have Tom, we have Liam and his staff. So it's a team effort, and it might be different depending on what works for who's got the relationships, or what works for that player, or so it's not obviously Brian and the recruitment team head up in terms of player ID, but it's a team effort.
Yeah, and so they would come to you and say, we want to sign Joe Bloggs and Frank Smith, and this is the fee, this is the wages, and it's within the budget we've been set, and then you'd say, right, go ahead.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, I guess the key thing in this, Steve has often said, well, he has said, what football makes it can spend, yeah, and what football makes. I mean, this financial year, the year ending June 24, there's the Scott money, and that's going to go a large way to making it a much more profitable year, or less losses from that point of view. But at the end of the day, the club, unless we have an Alex Scott, we have a cost base that does seem to be losing an 8-figure sum every year. You know, we've got FFP, we've banished, we're safe now.
That's right.
Alex Scott's fee, just that one lump, makes us free from FFP for probably 3 years, yeah, if you spread it across from that perspective. So are we happy being a sustainable mid-table championship for another championship side for another 9 seasons? Is that enough? And some people say it is.
Look, that's not what our aspiration is. Our aspiration is to break into the Premier League.
Sure.
And we're not that far off. If you look at the points difference between us and 6th place, 6th is the target. To get us in. We haven't been in the playoffs for a long time. So that's the main aim. That's the first aim, is to get in the playoffs and get in the top 6. So we all know the teams have done it on lower budgets than us. Lower player budgets. We've got to look at Luton, look at Huddersfield a few years ago. It can be done. It's very difficult, and it seems to be getting increasingly difficult with the gap between the teams with parachute payments and those without. But it can be done. So it's just because we spend mid-table, it doesn't mean that you're going to finish mid-table. You could finish higher or lower than that.
So is a lot of it just the luck of the where the cards play out, the margins, injuries, things like that?
Well, and all these factors, isn't it? The more, historically, the more you spend, the better chance you have. But it comes down to, how well you've spent the money that you've got, and how well you're coaching them, and how, and the coaches getting the best out of them and managing the game. So there's lots of different factors.
Yeah. So the fans have got a naive view, though, really, when they see the Alex Scott money and thinking, oh, we've got 20 million, we can go out and spend that. You have to be a madness to think that you can just spend that level. And if you go back to previous years, I'm talking pre-lockdown, money was being, say, frittered away. That's probably not the right word, but Steve is being a little more cautious than perhaps he has been in the past, and rightly so, I guess, because he wants that sustainable model.
Yeah, rightly so, I think, and when we spent a bit more, we didn't bring us the success that we were looking for anyway. As I said, there's no guarantees. I think the thing is with someone like if you sell a player, for big money to a Premier League, it's great. You're right. Sorts your P&S out, and you've got 3 years covered there. But it makes the accounts look a lot better. We won't be posting such a large loss, from an accounting perspective, but from a cash perspective, you sell a player like that. Often it's 3 or 4 years of instalments where the money's coming in. There's obviously a lot of incentives on there around appearances made, landmarks, win an England cap, so on. So, you might only get 20% of the benefit, or 25% or less of the benefit during that year from a cash perspective.
That's right.
But you sort of get the benefit for the next 6 to 8 transfer windows there of that sale. So when you make a sale like that, you're really, it's a long-term benefit rather than suddenly you've got a load of cash in your pocket.
Can you? But you are allowed to put, as I understand it, to put the full cash amount for the sale. So let's say Alex Scott was 20 million to keep things simple. You can put that into your P&L.
That's what goes in. That's what goes in this year.
That into
that's not the money,
but that's not cash.
No, because that might be paid in 3 years of 6 million.
Years, yeah.
But then if you were going to be bold in the transfer market, you might think, well, we've definitely got the money coming in because he's been sold, yeah, and therefore we could splash out of it. But because of the losses, we're not. I get it that we're not going to do that. Frustrating though it is, and that's because let's be honest. You spoke at Senior Reds back in November, and you said Nigel had lost 5 of his 7 games leading up to when he left. Yeah, I feel, and again we say this regularly on the podcast, that the fans have been probably harsh on Liam, and they're using the non-spending of the Scott money to beat the board with, aren't they? That's a view that we hear a lot in our text feed. You're nodding, so I'll take that as an agreement there.
Well, it's something that comes up. Dave's right. It's something that comes up all the time. Well, so what's happened to the Scott money then? And it's literally every podcast. We have live comments. I don't know if you've seen it, but we have live comments going down the screen, and people are logged in on YouTube. And it's, so what's happened to the money for Semenyo in Scotland? Where's that gone?
Well, they don't realise that the club's losing money just in terms of an operational thing. But Richard Latham was speaking at Senior Reds today, and he said, I feel the club need to make a marquee signing. Yeah, well, we sat saying, that ain't going to happen because a marquee signings triple the value of anything that we're probably likely to spend. But then, at the same time, Richard's saying, and it's obviously Senior Reds, so it's a certain age of audience there. He's saying, we always sell our best players. We always let our best players go. But if they want to go, you can't stop them, can you? And that's the thing with Tommy, because Brian said in open conversation, Tommy's been offered contracts, but he's probably seen his mate Alex Scott quadruple his wages, quintuple his wages, and he thinks he can do that. I mean, it is not an easy job, is it? Trying to deal with all these factors.
Look, it's very difficult to stand in a player's way if they've got the ability to play in the Premier League and they're getting those offers. It's not just the wages, we focus on that. But look, it's their dream to play in the Premier League. Everyone wants to play in the Premier League. Coaches want to coach in the Premier League. So it's I don't think you can knock players for having that ambition, that target. And if they've got that opportunity, it's tough to stand in their way. Say it's often a life-changing amount of money, but equally it's their career ambition. So then I think it's a case of trying to get the best outcome for the club, and get it. And I think we've over a long period of time we've been pretty successful at that. To be honest, in terms of getting good value for the players who have left. I've always got it right.
No, we have,
but and I think that's all you can do as a club, really, is try and get the best.
So we are in a situation where if a player gets to the last year of his contract and he says, no, look, I'm not signing a new contract, or his agent has that conversation, then our default mode is, well, you've got to go then, so. Probably if you can get the right amount of money for them, obviously, because we've seen a lot in the past of a lot of players that came in, I'll call it the Mark Ashton era, where we bought a lot of players for a lot of money and they walked out the club for nothing. And I can probably name 6 off the top of my head.
Yeah, you're right, and I think COVID was a factor around some of that as well. Because suddenly the transfer market had gone to players that maybe you could have sold the year left. Suddenly it was, no one was spending any money, in sort of marketing transfer defence. But yeah, no one wants to get to that situation. You're going to get to that situation from time to time, but equally, if you have a player and you get a good offer for a player, and they've got a year left in their contract and they won't sign a new contract, then it's probably the right thing for the football club to take that money and reinvest it elsewhere.
Yeah. So coming on to, if you like, next season and the transfer window, we've covered the fact that we don't need to sell to buy. In your view, and Brian's advertised that there'll be a 9 or we want a 9 and a 10. That's what the man wants. No other players have been mentioned, but I suppose if you get a situation where the likes of Joe Williams, who's out of contract, leaves, then that player would probably be replaced.
Yeah, look, I don't want to talk about individual players, and that's for that's for Liam and Brian and the team to work around.
What's the situation? What? Probably not the right person to ask. The pre-season plans for tours, going away, pre-season friendlies and that sort of thing. Because a lot of criticism last season that the prep wasn't there because we didn't really play any teams of substance. Are there any plans afoot on that at the moment in terms of pre-season?
But the plans are still in progress. So obviously the last few pre-seasons we've had Nigel's been in situ, and he's had the way that he's wanted to prepare the team and prepare for pre-season. And it's well documented. He liked going out to Austria and have sort of team building out there. And you can see Liam's got a different view and has his own view. So we're looking at the moment about a potential pre-season tour. We're also looking at potentially having a friendly at Ashton game, a pre-season friendly if we can find the right opposition. So we're busy trying to arrange that.
I think the last time we did that was against Crystal Palace, wasn't it? Down here. I remember going to the game.
No, we had Villa down here subsequent to that because Crystal Palace was in Adam Webster was pretty much signed on the dotted line, and he played like he was legs of China. He just didn't get involved and got gubbed 5-0. There we go.
It wasn't a great moment in the Palace.
Yeah. It's a shame that we haven't, some of those players that we've sold, it's a shame we haven't benefited from the add-ons that were obviously built.
Well, we have from an appearance perspective.
Okay.
But
not the salon, from the salon.
Not the salon.
Yeah, because Josh Brownhill, Brownhill's, is Brown out of contract?
Brownhill's out of contract at Burnley this year, I think.
But yeah. And there's a bonus if it happens. I remember we're very lucky with the salon for Yannick Balas.
That was the one that was about £3 million. That was, wasn't it? Something like that.
I can remember Addy Akin buying. We got a decent salon on him as well, didn't we? But we never put a clause in on Andy Cole, which was an enormous shame.
Well, had we done so, then Joe would have been able to buy Robert Flett, and we might not have gone down.
There you go. All our history.
What's the latest on the sporting quarter? Taking it away from City right now. It's all interrelated. Is that just wait and see?
Yeah.
In the lap of the
just
due process.
We're following due process for the judicial review. Trying to resolve that issue.
Is that ongoing, the judicial review? Have they decided there is one yet, or have they, or is it still the council working out whether we'll have a judicial review, or people in London? Right? How does that whole thing work?
It's still ongoing. I mean, it's still trying to work our way through that and try and remove that so we can proceed.
And just for the people that obviously don't have the benefits like Dave and I do of going to the senior Reds and hearing you speak, this has been going on now for what, 3 years?
I think when I joined over 8 years ago, it was a promise of a sporting quarter to be built. So it's been going on for a long time. But yeah, this particular issue has been going on for
For what you were saying, if they said tomorrow, right, okay, tick in the box, there's a go ahead, then Bristol Sport or whichever vehicle Steve would use is funded and ready to go to build a hotel, car park, and all the other bits and pieces. Is there a basketball stadium in there somewhere?
Yeah, that's it. That's the centerpiece.
Yeah, sporting convention centre where the basketball team, Bristol Fires will play.
Yeah, so it's all ready to go. The money's there, the development is all ready, and it's being held up for 5 years. Isn't that lovely?
Yeah,
modern government.
Very frustrating.
Yeah. One question I wanted to ask you, I've noticed that the number of employees grew a lot last year. Is that because we took people on the books, or is it because we, I'm thinking in sectors nothing to do with football, to be put. It's
Yeah,
like
I mean-
food and beverage. Is that because people are on the books as opposed to you're using an agency?
A little bit of that, yeah, a little bit of that. Trying to reduce our agency spend and put people on our books, but also the growth in our non-match day business. So you're referring to the Bristol City Holdings accounts, where
Yes.
Ashton Gate sits with Bristol City as well. So it's Ashton Gate staff where, and obviously, you know, our non-match day business has been growing, and as I said, there's been a move to try and get less agency staff and more people on our books.
Yeah, and that, I noticed with the players, there are 70, let me put reading glasses on, 76 players. I've gone down from 90 the previous year. Those 76, what does that include? Does that include the women, the under-21s, the under-18s, and the men's? Because the men's first team squad is about 27.
Yeah, we'll include the women's. So Bristol City Women is included in the holdings. It include over 16s up, so it'll include the scholars, so, you know, the under 18s.
Right.
I'll include our under 23 players.
So these accountants, they can't be anything like the ones you send into the EFL for PSR, because otherwise, you know, you look at the losses, you know, taking the latter 3 years into account, and they certainly stack up, don't they?
Yeah, with PNS, you know, it's a big operation, you know, submitting our PNS, but there's different deductions that are allowed. So in terms of capital expenditure, there was, you know, a COVID allowance that was added back. The expenditure on the women's team is allowed to be added back. The academy spending on the academy is added back. So it's not a case of taking the loss from the accounts. There's a number of different add backs and adjustments that we can make before we get to the loss that they take from a profitability and sustainability.
Yeah, but they actually finalised and bottomed out the rules, because the last time I was speaking to Steve and possibly yourself, they still haven't, you didn't know exactly what PSR was going to be. And on that same subject, the Premier League still haven't decided what they're going to do about solidarity payment, which is a big old chunk of our income at the moment, isn't it?
It's very disappointing. Yeah, it's very disappointing that no new deal has been agreed with the Premier League. So we were hoping that would be the case this year, and that would make a material difference to our financial situation, as well as all clubs in our league.
So just for people that don't know, the Premier League get about they get 15.6 billion of money, and they allocate 10% of that across the rest of the football pyramid. And by that, I mean EFL, National League, right down to grassroots football. And that, to me, just looking at it on the grounds of fairness, seems just chronically unfair for any system to be like that.
Them's the rules, though. Yeah.
But I'm still. But even though with parachute payments, I mean, I just like a competition to be a level playing field. But it's like with these parachute clubs, sometimes it's like they're allowed to put 12 blokes on the field.
Yeah, no, it's really frustrating. And you know, we were hoping there'd be a new deal with a better distribution to the EFL clubs, and the parachute payment. You know, it's the cliff edge is what I sort of think of it, really, in terms of the difference between the money. And that's why, you know, we talked about the losses we make operating loss. That's why the Championship is such a tough league from a financial perspective, because of that cliff edge. You know, where it just doesn't drive the right behaviour, really, because you're always going to want to gamble, you know, to try and get that Premier League money. So, but look,
that is you just use the term, it's a gamble, isn't it? And then and gambling is a choice, isn't it? You know, you either do or you don't. From that perspective.
So yeah, we were all hoping for a new deal this year. It hasn't materialised. So yeah, we'll see.
And that would have impacted on 24-25 budget, basically.
Yeah, and this year,
and this year.
Yeah. So,
and they bottomed out the PSR rules now, because there's some right punch-ups going on. Clubs are getting docked points. They're appealing. They're saying, well, they got docked 4, and then it got down to 2, and I got docked 6 for the same thing. And that was after it was 10. It seems to be a bit of a mess.
It is a mess, but you know, we're talking about the Premier League clubs. Really,
all clubs are equal, but some are more equal than others. Man City, please no. Okay, right. I think you got any more questions, Ian?
No, I
Unless
think
you've got to do your forensic analysis of the accounts.
no. I'm not
Yeah.
going to. I'm not going to do that. But I'm just thinking, looking at it, where we get our revenue from. It's just interesting to work out. The amount of money. I mean, season ticket revenue isn't quite as big as what we get from the Football League pool, and it's nowhere near as big as what we get from the Premier League in a solidarity payment. And my own feeling, and this really doesn't matter, and they're not going to take any notice of me in the Premier League, but I think that solidarity payment should at least double.
That'd be nice.
It'd be good, and it'd be good if let's assume it had have doubled, which is what Ian said, gone from 4 to 8 million. Do you think that would have been spent on increasing the players' budget, reducing the losses, or taking a midpoint view of covering, further reducing the losses but increasing the transfer budget a little?
You'd like to think a little bit of both.
Yeah,
there would have been more money in the ecosystem,
Yeah.
in the championship. What you don't want is, to get an extra 4 million and everyone ups their player budget by 4 million. That's not really going to do any good. But I think there would have been more money available for transfer fees, and would have put stress on wage inflation on players. But in terms of the clubs and the losses that have been posted in the championship, I think
Make much of a difference, is it?
certainly a willingness to sort of try and reduce those losses and maybe run it a bit more sensibly as a result. But
So John said when he was interviewed after Nigel left, we've got a top half wage bill. Do you think that'll still be the case this year? Bearing in mind, top half is about where we are now. We're 12th, aren't we? So that's halfway.
Yeah, look. I think we are. I can't say with certainty. I don't see everyone else's accounts, but certainly historically, for a number of years, we've been a top half wage bill side. But within that is a massive discrepancy. If you look at there's clubs in the championship whose wage bills absolutely dwarf ours.
Yeah. Because they're the parachute payments.
Yes.
So we're a top pair if you take away the parachute payments.
Take away the parachute payments. There won't be. There will be clubs, but there won't be that many clubs with a higher budget than us. Significantly higher.
I think
budget.
Norman Hunter said when he came here that he was being paid more by us than he was at Leeds back in the day.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Yeah.
Okay. All done. But Gavin, it's been great. I mean, I'm really pleased that you've given us your time, because I always say we're the bad boys on the podcast. We're always the moaning minis that sit there in the background. But between us, we've got over 100 years of support of watching City. So, we set the podcast up 4 years ago in the middle of lockdown, and it just goes from strength to strength. And, thank you for talking to us, because I know there's other people probably been asking, and you let us do it. So thanks a lot for that.
Thanks, mate. Really appreciate it.
Happy today. Gonna put my cares in a whistle.
All right.
Blow them all away. What if I've been unlucky? Really, I ain't got a thing. There's a time I always feel happy as a king. When the red robin comes bobbing along. There'll be no more sobbing when he starts throbbing his old sweet song. Oh, wake up, you sleepyhead, get up, get out of bed, cheer up, the sun is red, live, love, laugh and be happy. What if I've been blue? Now I'm walking through fields of flowers. Rain may glisten, but still I listen for hours and hours. I'm just a kid again, doing what I did again, singing a song. When the red robins are bobbing along. When the red robin comes bobbing along. There'll be no more sobbing when he starts throbbing his old sweet song. Oh, wake up, you sleepyhead, get up, get out of bed, cheer up, the sun is red, live, love, laugh and be happy. What if I've been blue? Now I'm walking through fields of flowers. Rain may glisten, but still I listen for hours and hours. I'm just a kid again, doing what I did again, singing a song. When the red robin starts bobbing along.